Right here's iniquity. Where does iniquity come from? It comes from faith being rooted and grounded in an error concerning the truth.
Yep.
And guys, Satan is so good, he'll listen, he'll hide his lie in 99 truths. And that one lie is what's going to sink you. Amen. Amen. Look right here in 2 Timothy chapter 3, and we're going somewhere with all this. I want you to understand the importance of what we're talking about. I'm not up here to defend a camp or a position. I could care less about that stuff. Amen. I could care less about it. I care about this book that God gave me. Amen. 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 5 through 8. Paul telling Timothy about men of the last days. He said that they're going to be disobedient, proud, boasters, disobedient to parents, lovers of pleasures more than lovers of God. But watch what he says. Those people are going to have a form of godliness. Those people will not give up their religion. Amen. They'll still sing in the choir. They'll still go to church and pay tithes and get dunked in water and all the other rudimentary nonsense. They'll still have a form of what? Godliness. You know what that means? They try to counterfeit what God's truth really produces. What does God's truth produce? Godliness. What do these people have? A form of godliness. Meaning the unspiritual man has no ability to judge the difference between the two.
Amen.
Yeah. Amen. I feel sorry for people today trying to find God and find the church. It's a mess. It's an absolute mess. Having a form of godliness but denying the power thereof. They have a form but they deny the power of godliness. From such turn away, for of this sort are they which creep into houses and lead what? They're Satan's workers. Remember Satan's will? Satan's will is to take captives, and these men are doing his work. They creep in and they lead captive silly women laden with sins, led away with diverse lusts. Ever learning and never able to come to the knowledge of the what? There's people been in church 40, 50 years, no closer to the truth than the day they walked in the doors. They're ensnared. Yep. They've been led away and taken captive by Satan's ministers of iniquity. And they smile and they wear long robes and to the average person, they can't tell the average person walking here and think this guy's too rough. There's no way it can be godliness. Just natural carnal people.
Amen.
Now look at this snare. What happens to these people that are led captive? They're ever learning, never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. They come short of the will of God. God's will is for all men to come to the knowledge of the truth. These people are ever learning, never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. Now look at what he says. Now as Jannes and Jambres withstood Moses, so do these also resist the what?
Truth.
It's all about the truth, isn't it?
Yep. Amen. Amen.
These men are actively engaged against God's will. They will oppose you. You start teaching the truth. You start standing for one book. You start trying to get men saved. You start trying to bring men to the knowledge of the truth, and you'll find out who your enemies are.
Amen.
Amen. They'll come out the woodworks. Who's Jannes and Jambres? They're the two magicians that copied the power of God in Egypt. Moses turned water into blood. They did the same thing. Counterfeits. But they could only go so far before their folly was made manifest before all men.
Amen.
One of these days, Jesus Christ is going to expose the religious world for what it is. Just a counterfeit, powerless system. Bankrupt when it comes to the truth. Going to expose it one day. Now you see this right here, guys? That's the mystery of iniquity. What is it? It's a bunch of preachers.
Yep.
It's a bunch of preachers who haven't studied their Bible, who go around calling themselves vicars. Don't even believe they have a Bible. And then stand up in front of crowds like this all the time where them people are ensnared in their system, and he keeps those people ensnared for 40, 50, 60 years where they're ever learning and never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. And then you've got other men in this world who have studied, who are capable of pulling people out of them places, out of them snares, recovering them from them places where they can be brought into a knowledge of the truth.
Amen.
Some of them work for God and some of them work for Satan. I wanted to lay this foundation so that when we get to this verse, you understand the importance of what Paul's telling Timothy here. This is not so we can have a little chart, and this is real business. This is spiritual. It's spiritual. If you want to labor with God in rescuing people out of the system of iniquity, this is what you have to do. This is not optional. He's writing to Timothy here a series of commandments and charges on how he is to conduct the ministry of godliness in a world where iniquity is getting worse and worse. What must he do? Study to show thyself approved unto who? A workman that needeth not to be ashamed, doing what? You think it's optional? Because it's not. A 12-year degree ain't going to make up for a lack of this.
Amen.
Greek and Hebrew ain't going to make up for a lack of this. You're either approved of God or you're not. Now, it doesn't mean that you won't have a church and that you won't have people in the church. You're either approved of God or you're not. And you and your conscience know whether you're not.
Amen.
You know in your conscience whether you're approved of God for the work or you're not.
Yep.
Amen?
Amen.
Now let's break this verse down. Number one, there's a command. What's the command? Study. What are we to study? You're told at the end of the verse. What are you to study? That disqualifies everybody that don't believe they have a Bible.
Amen.
They're already disqualified. Is that a reliable translation or is it the word of truth? Is that close? Is it a good one or is it the word of truth? Is there an error in it? Is there one lie in it from cover to cover? If you believe it is, get out of the way. You're not qualified.
Amen.
Go find the book and then come back and we'll talk.
Amen.
Don't be a preacher until you've got the word of truth. Number one issue. And so command, study. Motive. What's the motive of the study? To show thyself. Who's in this verse? Thyself in God.
Amen.
There's the motive. You get the book and you study that book for no other reason than to show yourself personally approved unto God. Not worrying about anything else. Personal. Y'all with me tonight?
Amen.
Okay.
Amen.
What's the purpose? A workman that needeth not to be ashamed. So we study to show ourselves personally approved unto God. What are we approving ourselves to? Workmen. What work are we involved in? The work we're involved in is to get men saved and bring them to the knowledge of the truth. That's the will of God at this time for all men. 8 billion people in the world. And God's will is for all of them to be saved and to come to the knowledge of the truth. And you've got a handful of people that care enough to study their Bibles to approve themselves for the work. Rest of the people's worried about what they're going to wear, what they're going to put in their belly, what they're going to do next week. Amen.
Amen.
I I mean, it's a shame that a hillbilly from West Virginia has to fly to the Philippines and England and where else, maybe India next here in a few months. We need workmen. God needs workmen. Satan's workmen are all over the place. Church buildings after church buildings after church buildings that he has set up as snares to take captives, and very few men are qualified enough to go out and recover these people.
Amen. Good.
All right, what does God require in his workman? He must have a skill. So he studies to develop this skill. God does not tell you how to study the Bible here. He tells you what studying the Bible is going to develop.
Amen.
If you study the Bible with the right motive for the right purpose, God will teach you through studying the scriptures, precept upon precept, line upon line. He will teach you how to rightly divide his word.
Amen.
And God requires that skill in his workmen. In fact, every denomination of Christianity that's got people ensnared, you can trace every one of them back to a lack of this skill right here. Men do not know how to handle the Bible because they do not have the skill to rightly divide it. So what happens is they find a verse over here, and they say, well, this one says you can lose your salvation. Then there's a verse over here that says this one can't. You got two denominations now.
There.
They fight about the rapture and the second coming and all this stuff.
Yeah, it's wasting time.
Because they cannot rightly divide the word of truth. And so you take all these positions, you end up with 500 churches.
Yeah.
You know, I can take you through the book of Acts.